Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yeti from Earth to Plates, and in today's video we're going to warm up with some cozy, delicious soups. So we're going to be making a few different soups, and these soups I've been recording them over the last couple of weeks as I was cooking them up and enjoying them. So if you want to join me, get a spoon, get cozy, and let's get cooking. Now, any recipes that I am making, I will have them listed in the bottom in the description if I have a link, or I'll type up the recipe for you. And I hope you will enjoy this and maybe get inspired and make some soup for yourself as well. So right now we're going to make a copycat Panera broccoli cheese soup. And we're starting off with our butter here that I am going to melt down. Once this is melted, we're going to add in our onions, carrots, and broccoli in here. And we're going to let that cook down for about 5 minutes. Okay, now that this has cooked down a bit, we're going to add some vegetable broth, some milk, and some cream. I'm going to combine this, and then we're going to sprinkle in some flour, some kosher salt, some black pepper, and a little bit of pepper flakes. I'm going to continue mixing this in until it starts thickening up, and then we're going to let it simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so this is looking nice and thick. This took about 13 minutes. Now we're going to add some shredded cheese, shredded cheddar, and I have shredded it myself. I like to get the blocks. And now we're going to melt that until it's nice and smooth in the soup. And now the cheese looks nice and melted. So this is done. I'm going to plate this up. So here I have my roll that I will be eating with it. And this is beautiful. And this is how I like to do it. Cheesy, creamy, delicious. Hey guys, so today we are going to be making a tomato soup with cream. So we're starting off, we have a cookie sheet here that I just put a parchment paper on. I am preheating my oven to 450, and we're going to cut up these vegetables. Now, these were bought almost a week ago, and they are not the freshest. So I'm going to cut off the tops. I'm going to cut it in half. This one looks okay, so I'll just cut it in half. And for the pepper, I am going to cut off any pieces that are not the freshest, and I'll try to use just the parts that are good. It was just 2 of them that needed to be cut off at the ends. This one also a little bit. Okay. As for the pepper, top and bottom always comes off. So I think this half is still passable. This, not good. So we're just going to use this part. Okay, now we're going to sprinkle some salt over the top. Doesn't have what to stick with, so I'm going to put some pepper as well, and some olive oil, and then we're going to toast this to combine. Got a flavor, season in layers. Okay, now when my oven is ready, this is going to go in and roast for 45 minutes. Okay, to finish off the soup, now that it's closer to dinner time, I'm going to add in some butter in my pot here. And we're going to add some olive oil in here. I'm going to turn on the heat. We're going to let the butter melt. And while that's melting, we're going to cut up an onion. And we're going to add some garlic. So I'm going to take them out of the container. And we're gonna let this defrost a little bit so that I can crush it after, before it goes into the soup. Gonna dice this up. It doesn't have to be very small or very perfect because this soup will get blended up. Okay, to crush the garlic, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push down on it. Now this is easier to do with a bigger knife than this. I'm gonna do it with this knife. Just push down. We're adding that to the pot because the butter and oil have melted. Gonna add a little bit of crushed red pepper and a bay leaf, and we're gonna let this cook down for a little bit. And while that is cooking down here, I'm gonna prepare the rest of the ingredients in here so that once we're ready to, we'll just dump the whole bowl in there. So what we're gonna start off with is some chicken flavor consomme powder. And make sure that it's parved because we're gonna add cream in there. So what I'm gonna do first is a half a tablespoon of that, and we're gonna mix this with 3/4 cup of hot water. I'm gonna make sure that it's all dissolved before I start adding in the rest of the ingredients. Now the recipe calls for some marinara sauce, and I have here some pizza sauce that I made using some garden tomatoes. This is perfect. I pulled it out of the freezer earlier today. I had it out on the counter. It's been defrosting, and I'm excited to make this with garden tomatoes. And now we're going to add in some cream. So we have to add salt and pepper in here, but before we do that, I'm going to add some flour in here. And we're going to create a roux. And we're going to let this cook for a minute. Oh, a little bit of salt in here and some pepper. Mix this in. And into the pot it goes. And here I have the peppers and tomatoes that we have roasted up earlier. I'm going to add that in as well. When let this come to a boil. Okay, this is bubbling, so I'm going to lower this. And in 5 minutes, we're going to blend this up. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. I'm going to turn off the heat over here. I'm going to move you guys. And we're going to transfer all the soup into the blender. Now, if you have an immersion blender, you can go ahead and blend it up that way. I don't have one, so we're going to use this blender. Now, you're going to want to remove the bay leaf before you blend it up. So we're taking that out. And now I'm going to transfer all this. I'm going to blend it up now. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to transfer this back into the pot and keep it warm until we're ready to eat. No. Hi guys, so today we're going to be making a vegetable barley soup, and this is what we'll be using. I have some barley here, I have a sweet potato, I have 4 regular potatoes, I have 2 onions because they're small, so I'm going to use 2 instead of 1 medium one. I have 3 carrots, a squash, zucchini, and the recipe calls for 2 celery. I just have these from my garden, which I have had in my fridge wrapped up in foil since I harvested them from my garden, I think September, and they're still good. So I will be using these, and I'll be using more because they are smaller. The way I'll be making this is that I'm gonna dice up the onion, start sauteing it until they're golden brown. I will dice up one of the potatoes, add that in with the onions because that'll take a while to cook up. In the meantime, I'm gonna peel and shred the carrots, squash, and parsnip. Now, if you're using celery from the store, they're bigger. I would shred it up with these as well, but because these are smaller, they're not going to go through the food processor as good. So I'm going to dice them up very, very small. And once these things are shredded up, I'm going to add it to the onions and the potato. Now while this is cooking down, I'm also going to get the other 3 potatoes and the sweet potato cooking in water with some salt and garlic powder. Once the potatoes are soft, I will blend them up and add them to the vegetable mixture, cover with water, add the barley, and we're going to let that cook until it's all done. So let's get going. Okay, to get these cooking a little bit faster, I'm going to cut them into smaller pieces. I'm going to get the other vegetables going, but I'm going to get this cooking, and after that I'll add the spices in here. I'm going to use my C blade to shred up the vegetables. Okay, we're going to leave this on the counter until we're ready to add it to the pot. Okay, before I forget, I'm going to add salt to the potatoes. I forgot to mention before, I'm going to add white pepper with potatoes as well, and the garlic powder. And I'm adding the celery in here so that I can add all of this at once. Okay, so it's been 25 minutes now, and the potatoes, I keep pursing it with a fork to make sure that it's done, and it's nice and soft now. So I'm gonna turn off the heat. I'm gonna get my immersion blender. I'm gonna blend it up. It looks like I've got all the potatoes blended up. I'll just do it another 30 seconds. Okay, and now we're gonna add this into the soup along with the barley. And if it's too thick at this point, you can add some more water as well, which I think I will do because otherwise the barley is gonna absorb it all. Yeah, it is quite thick. I like this soup a little bit more watery. Let me guys bring you back closer. Let me add the barley first. So I think I'll do like a cup of barley. mix this in, and let me decide about the water. I'm gonna let this come up to a boil, and then I'm gonna let it cook for 30 minutes about, and we'll check it and taste it for salt and spices, and we'll go from there. This has boiled for 30 minutes now, simmered actually, and it still feels kind of thick. I'm gonna taste it for spices now, and I'm gonna turn off the heat because we're not ready to eat yet. So later when I warm it up before we eat, I'm gonna add more water. Maybe not. Let's see. The barley needs more time actually. I think I'll add a little bit more of all the spices. I'm gonna stir this in and taste it again. Delicious now. We're just gonna have to let it cook a little bit longer for the barley to soften. The barley already looks like it's cooked more, and it has gotten a lot thicker, so it'll definitely need more water. Let me check the barley for the texture. Okay. I think it's good because it's still hot, so it'll continue softening while it's sitting here. And like I said, when I'm heating it up again to eat, I will add more water. Let it come up to a boil again to make sure that the water is cooked through. Yeah, I think that'll be it. Delicious. So for the soup, we're gonna start off with the onions. The recipe calls for 1 large onion. I didn't have a large one, so I'm using 2 smaller ones. I'm gonna start by dicing this up, and I'm gonna heat some oil in here. And I don't have to dice this up very small because at the end we're gonna blend this up. And even though I'm not prepping this for today, I'm prepping it for a couple days from now. I'm gonna taste it for lunch today and make sure that this is good. Right. While that is starting to cook down, I am going to dice up the zucchini and crush the garlic, and I'm gonna peel the carrots. I think I'm not gonna do all 3. I think I'll just do 2. They're quite big ones. I'm gonna put the 3rd one into the fridge, and I'll use it for a side dish one day. The garlic will be easy. I'm using more than the recipe calls for because they are small, and all I'm doing is pressing down so that they crack open and release some of the juices, the oils. Okay, these carrots will not get diced up because we just want the flavor in the soup, but I don't want the color. So when it comes time to blend it up, we're gonna pull these out and we won't blend it up with the other vegetables. Oh, the garlic doesn't have to go in together with this. Okay, now that this is translucent, we're gonna add in the zucchini. And we're gonna let this cook down for an additional 10 minutes. Okay, now we're gonna add in our garlic and our carrots. And we're gonna let this cook for 2 minutes. We are done with this. And now that I moved the board, I'm just gonna mix this in and then I'll bring you guys closer. Now we're gonna add some broccoli. And my pot is not big enough, so I guess I'm not gonna do 2 bags, I'm gonna do just 1. We're gonna add some salt, some pepper, and we're gonna cover this with water. We're gonna make sure that all the vegetables are fully immersed. Now that this is all covered in water, I'm going to cover it, let it come to a boil, and once it's boiling, I'm going to lower the heat and let it cook for 60 to 90 minutes. Okay, so the soup has been cooking now for a long time. It took a long time to boil because I used cold water and the broccoli was still frozen. Once it came up to a boil, I let it cook. It's been about 60, 70 minutes. So now we're going to blend this up. If you have an immersion blender, that would be best, but I wouldn't even want to risk it because my pot is not big enough. So I'm going to transfer probably about half of it in here, and I'm going to add some cream as it's blending up. Okay, let me give this a little mix. When I am serving this up for dinner for our party, I'm going to make some, let me tell you what the recipe calls it. Parmesan croutons. So I'll show you how that comes together. But for now, we're just going to taste this. This is my lunch. It is a late lunch, but lunch nevertheless. Very good. I think you could use a little bit more salt and pepper, but I think I'll do it when I serve it because I think the Parmesan croutons will add a lot of saltiness and flavor, so it might not be necessary. And now we're going to work on the croutons, which has to be frozen. The recipe says for an hour before we cook it up. So I am prepping it a little bit more than an hour before, but it'll be fine in the freezer until we're ready to use it. And before I get to cutting up the Parmesan cheese, I'll create the breading station for it and prepare the pan that I will transfer everything into to go into the freezer. So I'm going to move this over here, get the cookie sheet here, I'm going to line it with some parchment paper. So first thing is in a bowl, we're just going to crack an egg. This is dirty. We're just going to crack it and whisk it. And that's all for the wet mixture, and then we'll do the dry mixture in here. For the dry mixture, we're going to start off with a half a cup of panko, 1 teaspoon of parsley, and a half a teaspoon of garlic. We're going to combine this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut up the block of cheese into half-inch cubes. And we don't need the entire thing. The rest of it I'll just shred up, and we'll use it for the kale salad. We need 6.4 ounces. This was an 8-ounce block of cheese. Perfect. Wow. Okay, this I'll shred up. And we're going to cut these into cubes now. The recipe says that if you don't have Parmesan or you don't like Parmesan, you can use mozzarella for this as well. And I'm not going to be cooking all of this up tonight because this is going to be way more than the people that will be having at the party. So the rest of them I am going to prep and I'm going to put it in the freezer for whenever I pull out more soups for those nights or lunches. I will be able to cook up however many I need for that meal. So I'm going to stick everything into the eggs. I'm going to toss it and then one by one bread it with panko crumbs. So I like to keep one hand dry, one hand wet. And we're just going to cover this and stick it onto the sheet. Could have used a smaller bowl here for the crumbs. Would have been a little bit easier. But we're making this work. And on the tray I'm separating them so that they don't stick together. This will now go into the freezer until right before we're ready to eat, and then we'll fry this up. I'm going to get some oil in here, and this is over medium-low heat. We're going to let this heat up, and we'll start frying up the croutons. These are supposed to cook for 30 seconds per side, these croutons. And they've been for more than 30 seconds already. It's not even golden brown yet, but it does feel like the cheese is melting. It's not really working out for me. I might remove it all, let it come up to temperature a little bit more, and then try it with some other pieces of cheese. I'm sure these taste fine. They're just not crispy the way I would want it. I'm gonna wait a little bit for this and we'll try this again. Okay, now we can get going with the cheese here. We'll give the croutons another shot. Okay, let me give this a flip. Yeah, these are now turning golden brown instead of just melting. Now this is now not centered on the heat, so it's not cooking very evenly. So these came out very good. I mean, I could have gotten them a more golden brown, but they were melty and delicious, and in the soup it was perfection. It added that that flavor that was lacking when I tasted it plain. So guys, I wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. You got cozy and comfortable with me. Hopefully this inspired you to make some soup of your own. As I was editing this, I realized that most of the soups that I put into this video were cream-based theory. So I might just make another one showcasing some other types of soups. So if you want to see those, consider hitting subscribe. If not, I'm going to pop some more videos on the screen for you that you can watch between now and my next upload. I hope to see you next time.